We were doing everything basically, and it was like we were just working out of our houses to start. I lived in Salt Lake, and Matt was here in Arizona, and so we still have clients in Salt Lake too that I did, but about 5 or 6 years into like freelancing a lot, and we started to build up where we needed a little office space, and so we rented this office condo down the street. It was like a 3-bedroom condo basically, and we were just running the business out of that, and we had a couple of employees, but we were still bootstrapping a lot. We had worked with, we were working with a lot of freelancers. When we get a project in that we couldn't feel like we could do ourselves, and we would work with freelance graphic designers. Definitely we worked with freelance programmers for a long time. Now we have 5 or 6 programmers employees, but for a long time it was something that we outsourced almost all of our programming. When we first kind of left out of corporate and were doing freelance, Matt had actually worked for Best Western, who's been one of our pillar clients. Rebecca worked for Intel, which is one of our clients. I worked for eBay, and we did a lot of work for eBay in the early part of the agency. So we kind of brought some of those big clients with us when we left because we had connections in there. A lot of it then came through kind of networking. One of the clients we have, I basically started working when I was in college. They're a developer in Park City, Utah, and I've done work for them for 20 years. So part of it is what we've done, what kind of our strategy is. We've always started small with clients. Like for example, when we first started going, like we got a project to work on with Best Western, or we got a project to work on with Intel because we knew we had some connection there. A couple of years we'd had to change up because we got to a certain size now where we built a more dedicated business development team, and they just started focusing on going after new clients, right? But I think the strategy that still is building us today is we are still very focused on building kind of our core clients. So we've really tried to focus on building long-term partnerships with our clients. It hasn't always worked, but when we get a new business opportunity or someone comes looking for us, we're pretty upfront of going, we've got clients we've worked with for a decade, 5 years, 6, 20 years, we like to build long-term relationships. So sometimes clients aren't looking for that. They want to come in and get an agency and just have us for a year, and sometimes they do that. That's not really what we're looking for. I think the Paul Mitchell Schools is an interesting example. I can tell you that. So Paul Mitchell Schools, it was somebody that I worked at with eBay who had left and had gone to Paul Mitchell Schools, contacted me one day for a small little project on Facebook. We did that project, and then we stayed in contact. So I said, hey, do you need somebody to run your social media? And he didn't immediately, but about a year later, he's like, hey, remember when you... I said, yep. So, a year later, then we pitched it and got their social media. And then we worked on their social media for a couple of years. And then somebody from the brand who was working on us, they were saying, hey, we need somebody to do X for the brand. And we said, oh. So it's something we built, but we built it over almost 6 years. The biggest challenge, and it's one we still face today, I think it's still the biggest challenge, is how do you balance having the resources in place to do the work, but you don't want to bring the resources on before you have the work, and then when you have the work, sometimes you don't have a lot of time to get the resources in place. So a lot of times, I think it leads to, you get in a lot of situations where you're working long hours, you're working under really tight deadlines, you're, sometimes it can get really tough because I think there's a tendency for an agency to bring a lot of people in, but then you have to lay people off if that goes away. So we've tried to really, because we think it's also harmful for the culture, so we've really tried to be careful to grow very methodically. We haven't had to really lay off hardly ever. There's been almost no instance of that. But the trade-off is sometimes the smaller team has had to take on some pretty tough assignments. So it's kind of 50-50 for me now of how much I do running just the business part of it and how much I'm involved in the creative part of it. Mostly I'm focused on concepting. I'm focused in the video part of things like TV commercials. We were kind of in a fortunate position when we started that like social media wasn't really around. some of the earlier breaks we got into some of these companies was because we could come in and do social media. Now I think that's kind of crested a little bit. Right now I would say marketing automation is one of those big opportunities where we're seeing a lot of growth, where companies are trying to figure out how to market through, for lack of a better term, more artificial intelligence type things, programmatic marketing. We hired a traffic manager, it's probably been about 8 years ago. We brought a traffic manager in to kind of handle just that. And we started basically just keeping it in track of a spreadsheet. But then as we continued, we started hiring programmers, and we started developing copy people, and we had a video team. Now we had even way more stuff going on with tickets. So we adopted a system called Jira 3 or 4 years ago, I think, and really helped us a ton as far as being able to increase just the efficiency for how tickets come in, how they get assigned. Our traffic manager can handle all that now because a lot of it's being automated and tracked. Before, a lot of it was just being tracked through email, and it was like super confusing. So, the way it works now is an account person or a project management person will put a ticket in. There's all sorts of different variety of tickets, and then Zach is kind of air traffic control, and he gets it assigned to whoever needs it. But then all the feedback and the comments and all the revisions are all tracked in those tickets, and then they're closed out and archived, and new ones are opened. So it's been a pretty great system for us, and has helped us grow, actually. There's kind of two ways we look at it. We look at it an opportunity. Sometimes we look at it as an opportunity to go, if we worked on this, where could it lead us? An example for this would be like Dan's Eyes and Dairy. So they were a very small dairy company about 5 years ago, came to us. They didn't even have any, they were like launching, right? They were just starting. So for us, it wasn't really a giant, money maker necessarily right then. But we looked at it and thought, wouldn't it be great to be involved in developing a product, launching it in the market, and seeing where that could go and grow with them. And that's really what happened. They were like probably way more successful than we ever thought they were going to be when we started. Plus, we also look at opportunities. It's not just about the dollars and cents. We like, we're creatives at heart, and we love opportunities to just work on creative stuff that people have a passion for. A lot of projects go like that. Because it's kind of it can get a bit messy, right? When you look at something in theory, the client tells you exactly what they want, and then you do exactly what they want, and they see it, and it's exactly what they thought they wanted, and theoretically, it never goes that way, right? A lot of times, the client will tell you what you want, then you go to the first step, and they have changed their mind, or you interpreted what they thought they wanted differently than what they really wanted, and so there's a lot of that going back and forth, so a lot of it is, like I said, that alignment of staying aligned with the client. A lot of it is discovering, because the client doesn't always know what they want. They either they think they know, or they kind of have a vague idea, but it's really hard for you to fully understand it until you start going down the road. And sometimes you have to keep showing them stuff until they go, oh, that's it. And that can take a while. So that's a normal process. We've run into some hiccups when we're trying to do new, especially technical things. We had an augmented reality project we did about 3 or 4 years ago that we just got into it and hit some serious roadblocks. And we had to, we came up with a solution, but it wasn't what we necessarily set out to do. There's a lot of times what we're doing is new stuff, so there's always things that you sign on to do things, and you a lot of times don't have any idea exactly how you're going to do it when you say you're going to go do it. So there's always a risk there when you're working with new creative things that nobody's done, that you're going to run into roadblocks. A lot of times we've gotten really good at problem solving as we go, keeping the client involved, bringing up, we've gotten a lot better at that. And there's been a few times where we've just gotten ourselves into these roadblocks that were just too big for us to get